Welcome to Books on Point. Intelligence Isn't Enough is a book aimed at empowering young women, especially black graduates entering the workforce and black professionals already at work, teaching them not only how to survive but also how to thrive in the corporate environment. The author Clarice Anderson uses her own experience as a mentor, teacher and researcher, as well as the evidence and personal anecdotes from 30 successful black leaders in Africa, North America and Europe to guide the reader through what she calls the major corporate muscles. She joins us for more. Clarice, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
So take me through the inspiration and rationale for writing the book.
So I really say it falls under kind of three categories. I call them the 3 E's, right? It was empowerment, exposure, and examination. So I think from the empowerment standpoint, I wanted to share with young people everything I wish someone had told me when I was early in my career, because I really feel like there are a lot of things that young people can do to make their corporate experiences more fruitful and for them to have more impact. The second one is exposure. I mean, you mentioned the 30 Black leaders that I interviewed who have worked and been educated and lived in Africa, Europe, and the United States. I wanted to give Black professionals access and exposure to those individuals, because under normal circumstances, they probably wouldn't, right? So I wanted them to hear from people and to hear from people from different industries and functions, not just my own voice, but also the voices of other successful Black leaders. And then that third point was examination, which is we need to examine certain elements of our culture, certain messages that we're getting from, our well-meaning families that may not serve us well in a corporate space. So I wanted to really encourage young people to examine some of what we've heard to see if it fits the environments that we're working in now.
Right. Building relationships in the workplace is extremely important. What are some of the lessons you've learned about, building and sustaining those relationships?
Well, number one, I think a lot of us are told to be excellent, but we're never told that we have to be excellent with, through, and for other people. Excellence does not exist in a vacuum. So I think it's, first of all, getting people to understand everything you're going to accomplish that's going to have real impact is going to be with other people. So understanding the importance of other people, in terms of being successful and being excellent. I think number two, just the importance of mentors and sponsors. I think a lot of times Black people were over mentored and under sponsored. So we have a lot of people giving us a lot of wisdom and advice, but we don't have senior people in the organization who have influence, who have what I call juice in my book, who can, speak up for us in rooms where major decisions about our careers, promotions, bonuses, step up opportunities are made, right? So we need to be building relationships with the right people who are in those rooms, and people who are decision makers and influencers. And I would just say the third element is really just learning how to get along with different types of people, dealing with conflict, knowing how to communicate in a way that, speaks to the personal brand that you want to develop, and valuing people who bring things that are different than what we bring. I think oftentimes we get frustrated when we work with people who don't bring what we bring, but that's the whole purpose of being on a team, is that everybody's bringing something different for us. So I think we have to learn how to value other people who bring things that we don't, and hopefully learn from them, as opposed to being a source of conflict and tension, but a source of collective collaboration and teamwork instead.
You have a very interesting chapter on building your personal brand. And what struck me was the question that you get right into, where we talk about Black people and the struggle to building a personal brand. How have you navigated that struggle as an African woman?
Well, I think for me, it's been the idea of, first of all, I'm a really authentic person. So I don't want to do anything that is contrary to my personal values. But I realize if everything is, a deal breaker, then nothing is really a deal breaker, right? So figuring out the things that are really important to you, making it clear that you won't violate those things, but that you are open to doing other things to building your personal brand. And that for me was just a huge kind of aha moment. And I think even understanding what a personal brand is. A personal brand is not about being fake. It's not about fitting into a box. I mean, if we think about the brands that we love the most, it's because they're authentic. Those are the brands that have stood the test of time. And I think our brands will too, if we can find a way to develop those brands in a way that is authentic and real to us, right? And so what you might do to build your brand might be something that I'm not comfortable with, and vice versa, right? So it's also about finding, what are those techniques, what are those things that we're willing to do that do align with our personal brand and our own set of values, right? And because at the end of the day, it's all about you trying to occupy a certain space in people's minds. That's what a personal brand is. It's just occupying that space. And then everything you do, how you dress, how you deliver, how you communicate, your social media presence, everything needs to align with this personal brand. And so I think it's about helping people kind of, think about what are your deal breakers? What are you willing to do, not willing to do? What space do you want to occupy in people's minds? And then figuring out what are the things that you need to be doing, saying, delivering, dressing like, having a social media presence that lines up with that personal brand that you desire to have.
Right, before I let you go, a key piece of advice you'd have for our young graduates in order for them to, find that sponsor, where does the conversation start?
You said to find a sponsor, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, obviously performing well is the first place to start. When you start performing well, people will take notice. So I think that is the first step in terms of finding that sponsor is performing well. And then if there are people in the organization who, are very senior to you that are doing work that, you would eventually like to do or that you find interesting, I think approaching them, not necessarily to ask for a sponsor, because I don't believe you can necessarily ask for one. I think you have to earn it. But I think, building relationships with those people, asking those people how they've gotten to where they are, getting tips from them, getting advice from them. I think that is helpful in terms of getting those sponsors. And like I said, just continuing to really perform well, I think is really critical, and making sure you have visibility with those individuals. Or, can you work on a project with them? Can you volunteer for some sort of extracurricular activity so that you can get on their radar screen? And so they can potentially pick you and decide like, hey, this is somebody that I see a lot of potential in. I'm willing to put my name on the line for this particular person. So I think those are some of the tips that I think are helpful in terms of finding that sponsor.
Carice, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That is Carice Anderson, who's written a book, Intelligence Isn't Enough, a Black Professional's Guide to Thriving in the Workplace. That's it from me. More news with my colleague Nompumelelo Siziba at the top of the hour. It's a goodbye from me.